So who is UCRT? Since the late 90s, this NGO has been working, as I mentioned, with communities, pastoralists, and hunter-gatherers in northern Tanzania. They've so far worked with 35 villages in 7 districts, providing a number of benefits, which we'll hear about, and collectively seem to have created a consciousness and some sort of political empowerment with respect to land rights in these communities, which historically have been disadvantaged for a number of reasons. There's a particular tool which they emphasize or develop, participatory land use planning, and we'll hear in a minute why that is important in this case for establishing rights over the local resources. And with respect to this context, the Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues, it's worth noting that a number of the groups with which they work are classified as an indigenous peoples, although this is obviously a flexible definition. Now, turning to some of the success stories, I think these fall into 2 categories as I see them. One is sort of restitution, and the other is income generation. And on the restitution side, there are a couple of interesting case studies where UCRT, in collaboration with other international NGOs, in one case Oxfam Ireland, in another case Wildlife Conservation Society, have worked with pastoralists to have land restored to them which was alienated by the state. The first is a case which dates back to the 1970s when a state-owned corporation appropriated 100,000 acres of land from pastoralists for wheat production in an area which was probably not that suitable for wheat. And it failed as a result of a number of reasons, including management, but also probably ecologically unsuitable for wheat. Then there was restoration in theory, but in fact the process was subverted by local politicians and the land went to cultivators. However, through the involvement of UCRT and Oxfam Ireland, about 1/4 of the land was returned to the pastoralists from which it had been alienated. I'll give you another case. In this case, at the edge of Tarangire National Park, again the grassland, rangeland area, where about 30,000 hectares of land had been alienated by the government to give to an investor for a beans project, which failed. And again, UCRT, working with other actors, have supported the community's land claims and managed to have this returned, which is actually fairly unusual in my experience. Let's look now at income generation benefits, which is something we're maybe more familiar with because of the increasing importance of ecotourism. So UCRT has also worked with these same communities to help them generate income from the land. It doesn't just help to have the land. And so, for example, in the Ngorongoro district, 7 Maasai villages, through engagement in ecotourism, were able to increase their income 10 times from $30,000 to $300,000. And this was as a result, in part, of access to legal aid during negotiations with tourism operators, which was provided by UCRT to help them get a fair shake. And those resources have been invested in a number of local development activities, such as payment for school fees and health services. So let's just look briefly at some of the elements which could be considered to be important in allowing for these success stories, whether restitution or income generation, educational empowerment, etc. And I mentioned the participatory land use planning. Now, the reason why this is significant, has been developed as a tool by UCRT, is because the Tanzanian Land Act of 1999 makes documentation, certain types of documentation, a requirement to support your claim to land. So in order to effect your claim in legal terms, one requires the land required to be surveyed, there needs to be beacons placed, it needs to be mapped and gazetted, etc. And inter-community conflicts need to be resolved before the claims will be considered by the government. So there's been a lot of investment in land adjudication which has been done by the NGO, which is under-the-radar screen, time-consuming process which lays a foundation for these success cases. Another element has been management of natural resources, sustainable management. As we said, land, without management, without producing some income or other benefit, doesn't really help us. And so there's been inventories of what those resources are, Committees have been set up within village councils to oversee the usage of these resources, which is sometimes contentious because the main resource use is livestock, which moves around onto different areas of land which people may believe is theirs, and the partnership between communities and cultural tourism operators, which we mentioned already. Furthermore, they've supported things such as women's cultural villages, which creates a market for artisanal production, which previously had little economic value. And the community is employed as game scouts. Another aspect is more on the legal dimension, which is assistance to develop bylaws to ensure transparent governance of the resources which have been claimed, and assistance to bring these bylaws up to the ward and finally the district level in order to be certified as recognized by the state as actual law, having the force of law. Another element is community empowerment, which in particular in this case involves education, paying for school fees, because the communities are quite remote, they often don't have access to school, and the girls in particular, for a number of reasons, have very, very low rates of literacy. Another dimension of this is education in the sense of understanding what bylaws are, understanding what national land legislation is, understanding which policies at the national level are relevant to their cases, their situations, and supporting village assemblies in tribunals where there are land disputes at local level. Let's see. So basically, if we summarize this, I think there's a couple of overall effects that we can think of resulting from this background investment in community mobilization. One is the community, these actions have created a kind of early warning system for unfair land legislation, which sometimes people wouldn't otherwise hear about until it's too late. The land has been alienated to a foreign investor, for example, with no local participation. And also assistance to contact and lobby local politicians, and even for community representation at parliamentary level hearings, which currently is not foreseen within either the Wildlife Act or the Tanzanian Rangeland Act. So these community views would not have been possible to be heard at that level without the involvement of UCRT. So I think it's a very good case study of where a number of means of empowerment have resulted in benefits in terms of asserting land claims, having those recognized, sustainable management of the resources, and turning that into income, which is then invested in schools, health, etc. Now, I'll turn over to Paul. If you can talk about a current case that's ongoing and some of the complexities with that in this case.
Thank you. The UCRT has been going through a number of challenges in the process of empowering community and helping them to acquire land rights and such related issues. In the recent year, from 2009, we had a serious issue of land grabbing, especially on the part of Lolion. As the speaker has elaborated, as well as Mr. Professor Paul, we have a very terrible situation right now which is going on in Lolion. As you can see, just in the back. Yeah, right there. The UCRT is working with the villages which borders those famous heritage national parks. Serengeti National Parks, I think most of you know it, and in Ngorongoro Crater. About 8 villages borders the Serengeti National Parks. So these villages have a lot of wild animals in a comparable number as those which are found in national parks. So a number of investors, foreign investors, have been interested to take land for various economic activities. Yeah, in 1992, it is about 17 years now, the government, in a very compromised manner, allocated the land to, I don't want to mention the name of the company, allocated the land as a hunting concession without even consenting to the villagers. It was just a process from the central government to the investor, and the guy just came to take the land, the village lands of about 8 villages. Okay, that was not a problem. The guy was hunting in the area, which is the pastoralist land. They used to interact in those times. And when the term of the contract ended, the guy went again to renew the contract. And now, due to the facilitation of UCRT to empower those villages on the right to the land, there was some sort of conflict and misunderstandings between the government, and the community and the investor. By the way, UCRT have already carried out land use planning in those villages. So villages were aware on their land. As you can see, maps. This is the one of land use maps carried out by UCRT in collaboration with those villages. Then, right now, the communities know their rights, know the boundaries of their villages, and as I said earlier, the current problem is that, you can go and look at the last email. As you can see, that is the map from the government. It is just get the map. It is not an official map, just get from somebody in the government. It is not an official one. This is a new land use plan which the government is going to carry on right now. As you can see on the bright color, green color, is, yeah, that is the area which the government plan to give to an investor, and this is in the village land, and you can see the area border Serengeti National Park. So there is a lot of wildlife around the area. So the purpose, the government is claiming to demarcate the land as a game controlled area, but with new, I can say, new approach. Last year, about 2000, last year, the government passed a new tourism law. This one brings out a new guidelines in relation to many issues relating to wildlife. And in the past, in game controlled area, people were allowed to carry on their daily activities, grazing, and any other activity. But right now, in a new law, introduced law by the government, is that a game controlled area is no longer going to be a village land. It is not going to be used for any other purpose. For example, pastoralism or pastoralism activities. So when the government gazette let the land to be a game controlled area, all of them have to move and nobody is allowed in. So this is the current situation in Lolion. Even though we have those villages have land use plan, and some of them have acquired village land certificate. For example, one village has acquired a village land certificate, which is a document recognized by the government as, can I say, as a legal entity, which can be, I can just say a legal entity. But you can see some sort of complication, even though the law, land law or Village Land Act of 1999 enabled the villages to acquire certificates, as well as land use planning of 2008, as well as Local Government Act of 1982 provides a variety of secure rights for the provide procedures for community to secure rights, especially villages. But there is a contradiction here, that which relates to some, I can say, special interest from the government officials. Even though they know that, yeah, the government, there is the law, and this is a village is a recognized entity with these documents, but they just take it deliberately because, you know, it is a powerful entity. No one can, they know that our authorities are just pastoralists or just hunter-gatherers. They don't have somewhere to go. They don't have ability to judge the issue. So what they do is just, maybe I came to the point, direct to the point about the current land use plan, which is imposed, which is going to impose to be carried out by the government. You can see, yeah, something. Those are the houses, traditional houses of Maasais banned by the paramilitary force from the government to remove those pastoralists from the area, so that later on the investor can be given the land. You can see a number of photos. It was about 200, roughly it is about 200 huts, traditional huts. It is traditional houses for the Maasai. As you can see there, those women are trying to find a temporary shelter after their huts has been banned by the government. And the current situation is that the government wants to impose a new land use plan, but the villagers don't agree with the plan. It was about to be carried on since the beginning of this year, but the communities have been in the struggle, trying to fight the problem. Sometimes village district officials came with GPS with all resources to mark the land, but the village react. And right now we don't know what the government is going to plan. We have tried to talk with the government using all kind of means, negotiation, collaborating with some people that don't do something like this. You are going to endanger the livelihood of these guys, but no any kind of positive response. Therefore, what we opted for is to go in court. We know that it may, the result may not be in our favor, but this is just like a path to international communities that if the case fails at a local level or in the national level, then we can expose the issue to the international, as the professor has been narrating some points, so that these communities can regain back and can have a secure tenure of the land as well as the natural resources. This charity has been working with a number of organizations under the help of Colgate, Oxfam, UNDP, GL, the Global Fund, Norwegian People's Age. We have managed to carry out land use planning, capacity building to the communities, and if it's going to be the support of this organization, the situation for the hunter-gatherers and the community in general of pastoralistic would be worse. They could have been extinct now. We thanks for those who have been with UCRT to carry on the process. Thanks. And we need you guys in this room to help us, to back us in the process. We know, the situation is very tough right now for communities, especially the case of Lodion. It is terrible, and we don't know how is it going to be if the government imposes forcibly the plan which has now. Maybe I just
Thank you. That's excellent.
How are the children to do this year, the Queen Quet, one more again coming from this year forum for the Indigenous issue and things like that, and from this year session about land right and land grab. Now, 100 children know, say, we know plenty about that down here in the Gullah Geechee Nation, and that's what we to try for stop. But try for stop all these other return for county to keep the land from we, because we that did it, and we in the grind on it. So 100 children this year, the work going on for truth, and we're so glad if it be the head of this year body, the Gullah Geechee Nation, coming from the United Nations. This is Queen Quet. Peace and blessings.